Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Jana Ballabha Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mutiraye. Hare Krishna. How's everybody? Good. Om Jnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadahmayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Gopremanande, Haribo. So this one theme I was thinking about today was that the material nature that I'm involved with is a different energy than what I am. Although it comes from the same source, Krishna describes it as an inferior energy. He tells how the elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are separated material energies. And then he describes how the soul, the living entity, the jiva, living force, is a superior energy. So first he says, Bhumirapo analo vayu kamano bhudirevacha ahankara itiyame bina prakriti rashida. It actually lists the various elements. So bhumi means earth. Apo, earth, water, fire, air. Bhumir apo analo vayur, then air. So these are all identifiable varieties of Krishna's separated energy. And then he says there's a different category of energy, aparayamitastvanyam, prakritim vidime param, jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam darite jagat, which are the living entities, the living force. It's a different category of energy. I start so many talks with this point because I like it as a foundational place to start from, of understanding the difference between myself and matter. It's reassuring in a way to know that the material nature is a lower energy. Because as I said today, I was thinking about it. Yesterday I had this experience. I barely ever go out to buy things, but I had to buy something for Tulsi's house. That's the greenhouse in the backyard where Tulsi's growing. So I've been meaning to fix this automatic watering system I have in my greenhouse, but I wasn't having any success. Whoever I called Hell, which is also known as Home Depot, and I couldn't get through to anybody. I called 3 times and I was on hold forever. And then I tried the Ace Hardware store. They told me they had it, and I went there and they didn't have it. And tried someone else, and I realized it was 4:30. They closed at 5:30, and they said, "Good luck getting here to San Carlos in this traffic." And I felt like I was up against literally an ocean of energy that was very difficult to overcome. And then I took solace in the fact that I'm going to go home and read Bhagavatam. Because a couple things, when things don't work out, don't keep pushing necessarily at that time. There are different times of the day that might work better. And the other thing is just to realize that the material energy doesn't cooperate. It doesn't work in the same way that we do. It's very cumbersome. It's a little clunky. And it's just lower energy. And if I try to manipulate it too hard, if I become too vested in making sure it all lines up, then I'll be frustrated over and over again. The material energy doesn't line up. And in the Gita, Krishna says that no matter what you do in the material world, you're going to find there's going to be some fault in the activity. It's just the way it is here. Every activity is covered with some sort of fault. But there are ways of working in the world so that one can become peaceful. And that's necessary, Krishna says in the Gita, that you have to have peace of mind in order to move forward in spiritual practice. So one of the ways in which the scriptures talk about how one can adjust one's life in order to be happy is by observing proper relationships, having the right kinds of relationships with various kinds of people. So I'll read you a verse to prove that. I won't give you an empty promise or theory. So let's see 4:834. Mukharvin, can I have the book? I like to collect them up here. Collect them, trade them with your friends. This is a verse. Does anybody know what this verse is just by hearing the number? Yes, Mukharvinda knows what it is. What is this chapter? It's a story, right? Everyone likes stories. You like stories all, don't you? So it's a story about Dhruva Maharaj. Everyone likes those. I mean, there's lots of stories about people who are offended and then they go away and then they become great and they come back. Like lots of kung fu movies where somebody gets offended and then he goes away and becomes a champion kung fu fighter and comes back and wins. It's actually a typical theme. Yogeshwara Prabhu gave this talk at Houston at the Temple President's meeting where he discussed the journey, the hero's journey, how somebody is down and then they go away on the journey and then they become famous and elevated and then they come back to a hero's greeting. So that's the story here with Dhruva Maharaj, who left home because he was angry. He had been offended, even though he was just a little child. He got offended by his father and his mother, and it was actually his stepmother. So he went away to get revenge, really. And on the way there, he met his guru. He was determined. And Narada Muni showed up and said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to find God in the forest." And Narada Muni tried to talk him out of it. He said, go home, just be equipoised. And Dhruva Maharaj says, it's good advice, I'm sorry I can't follow it. See you later. And then he passed Narada Muni's test that he was determined to go no matter what. So Narada gave him instruction about how to perform mystic yoga. And that's what he did. And he attained perfection when he went there. There's one instruction he gave him. Of course, Dhruva didn't take it because he said, I'm a Kshatriya. This is for Brahmanas. But it's a recommended process for anybody in this world to attain peace of mind. So this verse is 4.834. And it says, Gunadikan Budam Lipsed Anukrosham Gunadamat Maitrim Samanad Avichen Natapar Abhibhuyate Guna Adikat, one who is more qualified. Mudam, pleasure. Lipset, one should feel. Anukrosham, compassion. Guna Adamat, who is less qualified. Maitrim, friendship. Samanat, with an equal. Anvichet, one should desire. Na, not. Tapai, by tribulation. Abhibhuyate, becomes affected. Translation. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. When he meets somebody equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Please repeat. Every man should act like this. When he meets a person more qualified than himself, he should be very pleased. When he meets someone less qualified than himself, he should be compassionate toward him. And when he meets someone equal to himself, he should make friendship with him. In this way, one is never affected by the threefold miseries of this material world. Purport. Generally, we find someone more qualified than ourselves. When we find someone more qualified than ourselves, we become envious of him. When we find somebody less qualified, we deride him. And when we find someone equal, we become very proud of our activities. These are the causes of all material tribulations. The great sage Narada, therefore, advised that a devotee should act perfectly. Instead of being envious of a more qualified man, one should be jolly to receive him. Instead of being oppressive to a less qualified man, one should be compassionate toward him just to raise him to the proper standard. And when one meets an equal, instead of being proud of one's activities before him, one should treat him as a friend. One should also have compassion for the people in general who are suffering due to forgetfulness of Krishna. These important functions will make one happy within this material world. Let's just see what you heard so far. Or I should say, hear what you heard. So just recall what you heard from the verse purport so far.
So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that one should not be envious of one who is more advanced than him. And something that struck me was, this sounds so simple to be true, just treating people with the right respect. Sounds very simple to be true, but also at the same time, envy can be the most difficult thing to overcome. And doing this can be simple, but very difficult as well. So.
Good point. Yeah, just try to show respect to those who are more qualified than oneself. But as you're saying, it seems to be difficult to do that sometimes, perhaps, right? Let me, before we go any further, if we could have 7:15:8, because I found this jewel of a verse in this 7th canto of the Bhagavatam. I just minded my own business reading the Bhagavatam one day, and I met this verse. You know, sometimes your whole life can change when you meet the right verse. You meet the right verse in life, you're set. And if you can just take it and listen to this. This is a powerful verse. Imho. This is 7:15:8. Naitra drisha paro dharmo rinam sadharma vichatam nyasodhandasya bhuteshu manovak kayu jasya yaha. Persons who want to advance in superior religion are advised to give up all envy of other living entities, whether in relationship to the body, words, or mind. There is no religion superior to this. Please repeat. Persons who want to advance in superior religion are advised to give up all envy of living entities. Are advised to give up all envy of other living entities. Whether in relationship to the body, words, or mind. There is no religion superior to this. So what else did you hear? I just wanted to put that into the ether as we're discussing these topics. What else did you hear? Yeah.
We read in the previous verse, solution to be free from threefold miseries of the material world.
What is it?
That if you meet a more qualified person to you, then instead of being envious, be pleased and appreciate as a good fortune. If you meet someone lower than you, then you should not deride him, but be compassionate. And when you meet someone equal, then instead of feeling proud for your activities, make friendship.
Yeah.
In this way, one will not be affected by the threefold miseries.
Won't be affected by threefold miseries. Interesting how, and Prabhupada mentions this is the cause of our suffering in the world, not performing, not interacting properly with the various kinds of people that we meet. Did you have something? Shraddha does.
So two things, Maharaj. One, I was thinking that when you meet someone who's your equal, then we start getting into a competition with them, and we give up such a nice opportunity to have friendship with them. Because when you are equal with someone, then you are kind of facing the same sort of opposition, same sort of difficulties. So it's good to gang up rather than trying to always be in a competitive state. And my question was that we talk about the threefold miseries. So those are Adibhautik, Adhyatmik, Adidevik. Those are the three that we talk about. The three types of miseries we are talking about.
Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, and Adidevik, definitely.
Right? Yeah.
That is threefold miseries in the material world. Adhyatmik, Adibhautik, and Adidevik. That means miseries caused by one's own body and mind. Miseries caused by other living entities. And miseries caused by natural forces beyond our control. So, at any given time, there's one or the other of these in our lives. Yes?
So my question was, I was thinking that if you are being envious or you're deriding anybody or in competition, then you would be having mostly Adhyatmic miseries. Or is it that demigods punish you for deriding others? Is it like that?
Could be. The main point is that the duk, the word duk means misery, unhappiness. And it really derives from the idea of an axle in a wheel. And when the axle is not properly aligned with the wheel, then you get a lot of friction and a bumpy ride. But when we're aligned properly and accept our position, whatever that may be, and then there's harmony. And there's a way in which Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Jeev Krishna Das e Bishwas Korle to Artuko Nai. If you have this conviction that I'm a servant of Krishna, then for you there's no more dukh. Dukhanai. It's finished because you're aligned properly. And unhappiness, misery comes from the mind. And there's a fierce competition going on in the material world for the scarce resources that are available. Everyone's looking around to see how they can get their share of resources before somebody else gets them. And so, yes, please. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. How should we deal with envious people?
We'll talk about that. I can mention it a little bit in advance, but there's a verse in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, that says, Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu tuisatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha ya karoti samadhyamaha. The middle devotee sees these four entities. One is Krishna, the other is the devotees, the other is the innocent, and the other is the envious, those who are envious. So he or she is enjoined to interact with those four entities variously and like this. Towards Krishna, one should develop one's love. Towards the devotees, one should develop proper relationships, friendship in proper ways. For the innocent, one should give compassion, mercy, kripa. And for the envious, one should be upeksha. One should avoid them, be indifferent. In fact, even in a book I read called How to Win an Argument, it's a book about debate, rhetoric, and it talked about fanatics. Have you ever argued with a fanatic? How'd it go? Well, he gives this advice about dealing with fanatics. He says, don't. The first rule, that's in the book, the first rule of dealing with a fanatic is don't. Don't deal with. So you have permission, according to the Bhagavatam, as a Madhyama Adhikari, not to deal with fanatics or envious people who have this burning desire just to make sure that God doesn't get glorified and so forth. You're supposed to avoid them. So, this is something that we can actually, this is a kind of skill that we can develop as we move about the world. And there's plenty of opportunities to, first of all, see the different kinds of relationships that I'm encountering, and second of all, to then adjust according to the Shastra, adjust my attitude and my relationship towards the people that I'm meeting at different times and places. Is there anything else that you heard that you want to report back on? Yes?
To answer that question, someone is envious of us.
1 second, here comes the mic.
Just to answer that question, when someone is envious of us, it is given in the same verse that people who are higher up, people are lower, they are envious of them. So, person who is envious, we are superior, he's perceiving us to be superior. So I think we should deal with him with compassion, that his ignorance is driving him towards envy.
Yeah, it's a good point. Krishna is speaking through you, because actually I made this note from the verse I just quoted, Ishvare Tadadineshu, about the four ways of dealing with different people. Jiva Goswami writes that one should avoid the envious, but should meditate on how to save them. He said, this is sudarachara. This is perfect behavior. Sadachara. This is perfect behavior to avoid the envious people, but consider and pray, how can I help them? How can I do good for them? Even though you're enjoined not to interact with them, because they become more envious if you do. So, any other thoughts before we move on? Yes.
I like the word jolly. Prabhupada used that you should become jolly. It's not just happiness, but it comes from the inside that that is like you have to feel that, it's not some
Yeah, in fact,
artificial.
In one Vaishnav commentary, it's mentioned that if one doesn't become happy upon seeing a Vaishnav, then one makes an offense. So when you see devotees, you become happy that, oh, good, there's a devotee. Become satisfied. Yes.
Also, I was remembering from one of your previous class, you were telling that one of your godbrother, when he was just passing away from this world, then he gave the last instruction that don't envy with your spiritual master. So that is like height of things and that's what this verse Prabhupada was telling in the purport, and that was his personal realization that how that is the height of envy happens.
Yeah, Krishna says himself, Acharyamam vijaniyam navamanyeta karhichit. He says, don't envy the Acharya, because the Acharya is my very self. There's no difference between the representative of Krishna and Krishna himself. So, okay, so about relationships, this is something that we can work on. And you get great benefit when you're able to appreciate those who are more advanced. When you see a person that's actually more advanced, instead of letting envy overtake me, I can then turn on appreciation. Now, there's three different levels. First of all, there's envy, and envy blocks my ability to take on the good qualities or even hear from others. I'm simply wishing that they would somehow or other mess up, so that I wouldn't hurt so much by noticing that there's somebody superior to me. And then there's a way of that is mentioned in the Shastra that you should at least tolerate. You should tolerate, because Jiva Goswami says envy is the inability to tolerate the eminence of another. So the first level that one can work on, if one happens to have this affliction, is to tolerate when somebody's more advanced than you. Just tolerate it. You don't have to, maybe, you can't yet appreciate them, which is the next step, but at least tolerate and don't let envy come in. And it kind of comes in, it seeps in. It seeps into one's mind and consciousness and blocks one's spiritual advancement. So at least tolerate the envy and try not to entertain it. But above that, there's appreciation, which is proactive. It means you can actually turn your consciousness around and begin to see what are the good qualities in this person. And actually realizing that it's safe to do so because each one of us is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna. And we're being maintained by Krishna eternally. And everyone gets exactly what they deserve. And why wouldn't we then be free to just appreciate that some people have great qualities? And also, as Krishna says in the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that I am the ability in man. So when one sees some good quality, one can then connect it to Krishna and think, oh, just see, this opulence is coming from Krishna. And just appreciate. It's an art. It's an actual practice of devotional service to appreciate the good qualities of devotees. As Queen Kunti says, Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti. She says, hear about, and then sing about, and then appreciate. Grinanti, just appreciate the devotees. And if one can do that, then one can make advancement. Then above appreciation is glorification. You can actually so wholeheartedly appreciate the qualities of the devotees that one can then glorify them. And you can see that in advanced devotees. They have nothing to lose themselves because they're self-contained in that they have already a secure relationship with Krishna. They know that they're satisfied unto themselves because they can hear and chant, they can perform devotional service, and they can surrender as much as they like to Krishna, and they're feeling Krishna's reciprocation. Therefore, they're not concerned with competing with others. And when they see others who are surrendering to Krishna, which is a rare thing in this world, and who are making advancement, then they feel free to glorify those persons. And this is among the most highly recommended devotional practices, to glorify the devotees of the Lord. By doing so, one makes great advancement in devotional service. So tolerate, then, and then, yeah. And if you can't do that, then then you have to suffer. That's what this is saying. You have to suffer from burning envy. It's very difficult. So there's a big project that we're involved in, the biggest project of all. I mean, there's a lot of projects that we can take up in the Krishna consciousness movement, but the biggest project of all is establishing a temple, an altar within our heart. That's big. People can manipulate things and move the energy around sometimes for a while, but longevity depends on purity of heart. And one actually has to become free from envy. And that's why this verse I read earlier says that this is the highest form of religion. I'll read it again. Persons who want to advance in superior religion are advised to give up all envy of other living entities, whether in relationship to the body, words, or mind. There is no religion superior to this. As it is mentioned at the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Dharma prochita kaitavo tra paramo nirmatsaranam satam, that the Bhagavatam is meant for those who are non-envious. They've given up this envy, they've put it aside, and they've learned the art of glorifying the devotees. And so this is a prerequisite for entering into devotional service. Yes?
Maharaj, can we consider humility as an antidote to envy? I've seen some devotees who are very humble. They're naturally free from this quality of enviousness. So, is there a correlation between them, or?
Yeah, definitely. That kind of humility engenders and allows one to observe the kind of relationships that are talking about in the Bhagavatam, the story of Yudhishthir and Duryodhan getting instruction from their teacher. One of them was asked to go out and find somebody better than himself. The other one was asked to go out and find someone lower than himself. Actually, they were both asked, and Yudhishthir went out and he said, I can't find anybody lower than me. And Duryodhan came back and said that, I can't find anybody higher than me, lower. And Duryodhan was the opposite. He couldn't see that there was anybody lower than him. So, did I say it wrong? Hantai. Higher. Anybody higher than him. Yeah. Duryodhan. He couldn't see anybody higher than him. He was the highest. And Yudhishthir couldn't see anybody lower than him. And so, when one has that perception, that deep humility, the whole world becomes a place where you can actually interact and learn and appreciate. And even if somebody's envious and we have to avoid them, you can still have compassion. Yes, so humility is therefore recommended by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the anecdote for this, what he calls durdaivam idrisham ihachani nanuragaha, that I have no taste for chanting Hare Krishna. He says, durdaivam, I'm unfortunate. And then in the next verse he says, be humble. Just be very, very humble. And then you'll be able to develop a taste, because he says, kirtaniya sadahari. You'll be able to continue chanting, praying like that. So, in the Bhagavatam 4:4-12. Do I already have it? There's a conversation between Sati and her father. Who's Sati's father? What are you all studying the Bhagavatam back there? We got some pundits in the back row. Pretty good. Thank you very much. Yeah. And she says to her father, Daksha, who had envy towards Lord Shiva, who is, what's Sati's relationship to Lord Shiva? Vrindavan? Huh? Yeah. That's right. So Daksha was holding a big yajna. Sati wanted to go to the yajna. Lord Shiva said, don't go there because your father is envious of me and he'll just criticize me when you get there and you're going to be all upset and it's going to ruin everything. But she really wanted to go. She saw everybody else was going. So she went there and sure enough, her father severely criticized Shiva, who was her husband. And she became very angry. Actually, in mystic potency, burned herself up. And then Shiva became angry, and then there was a huge kerfuffle in the yajna. And the whole thing was disturbed, to say the least. And as she was talking to her father, she said this, "Twice-born Daksha, a man like you can simply find fault in the qualities of others. Lord Shiva, however, not only finds no faults with others' qualities, but if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, you have found fault with such a great soul." Here's the purport. King Daksha is addressed here by his daughter Sati as Dvija, twice-born. Twice-born refers to the higher classes of men, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. In other words, a Dvija is not an ordinary man, but one who has studied the Vedic literature from a spiritual master and can discriminate between good and bad. Therefore, it is supposed that he understands logic and philosophy. Sati, Daksha's daughter, put before him sound arguments. There are some highly qualified persons who accept only the good qualities of others. Just as a bee is always interested in the honey in the flower and does not consider the thorns and colors, highly qualified persons who are uncommon accept only the good qualities of others, not considering their bad qualities. Whereas the common man can judge what are good qualities and what are bad qualities. Among the uncommonly good souls, there are still gradations, and the good soul and the best good soul is one who accepts an insignificant asset of a person and magnifies that good quality. Lord Shiva is also called Ashutosh, which refers to one who is satisfied very easily and who offers to any person the highest level of benediction. For example, once a devotee of Lord Shiva wanted the benediction that whenever he touched someone on the head, that person's head would at once be separated from his trunk. Lord Shiva agreed, although the benediction asked was not very commendable because the devotee wanted to kill his enemy. Lord Shiva considered the devotee's good quality in worshipping and satisfying him and granted the benediction. Thus, Lord Shiva accepted his bad qualities as magnificently good qualities. But Sati accused her father, "You are just the opposite. Although Lord Shiva has so many good qualities and no bad qualities at all, you have accepted him as bad and found fault with him. Because of your accepting his good qualities to be bad, instead of your becoming the most exalted soul, you have become the most fallen. A man becomes the greatest soul by accepting the goodness of others' qualities. But by unnecessarily considering others' good qualities to be bad, you have become the lowest of the fallen souls." So there's more commentary on that verse by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And he describes the gradations of people who are good and bad. So on the good side, there's the Mahatmas. On the other side, there's the asadhus. So then he gives the gradations of the Mahatmas. So first he calls the Mahatara. And the Mahatara is one who always can see not just bad qualities, but also the good qualities in somebody. Everyone has good and bad qualities, so the Mahatara is someone who can look and see, oh, I can see this person has bad qualities, obviously, but good qualities. You can see them. And then he says there's the Mahatama. And the Mahatama is one who sees good and bad qualities but magnifies the good qualities. And then he says there's the Ati Mahatma. Ati Mahatma. And the Ati Mahatma is one who sees good qualities even when there aren't any. And then he says for the Asadu, there is the Asadus are called the first one, Asudatara. The Asudatara is one that sees there's good and bad qualities in people, but he only sees the bad. And then the Asudatama is one who there's good and bad qualities, but he magnifies the bad quality. And then there's the Ati Asudatama. And the Ati Asudatama sees bad qualities where there are none. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he's a great Vaishnavacharya, and he's commenting on the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially on this, specifically on this verse. And he's bringing out these points that there are gradations of envy in this world, and there are gradations of what he calls sattva, when a person is mind and heart. And we were discussing just a minute ago about how the biggest project is to make the heart clean enough as a place where the Supreme Lord can sit. If there are contaminations in the heart, if, as Satyadev Prabhu was telling me on the way down here, there's like envy is like keeping garbage in your own house, just letting it pile up and accumulate here and there and everywhere. We've seen people who live like that, who just, it's shocking actually. Satyadev Prabhu used to be in the fire department in San Francisco, and he would go to rescue people sometimes. He told me a few times about sometimes people were rescued. He had to rescue people because they got trapped in their own house because they had so much stuff. Is this true, or am I making it up, Satya? It's true. Why don't you give him the microphone? He'll tell us more about it. First of all, let's welcome Satyadev Prabhu back.
Yes, it is true. Of course, there are some people, they're just such invalids that they can't get around. And so they'll get something like Meals on Wheels, or they'll order pizza every day to eat. And then those boxes just accumulate in the house. And so sometimes we couldn't even open them. We'd actually have to break down the door and clear a path so that we can get them out. Or what to speak if there was, sometimes people would have fires, and we tried to get in the door to fight the fire, but we couldn't even get the door open because it was full of junk there. And then other people, they have a disease called hoarding, where they believe in scarcity, that there's not enough, and whatever they get, even if it's old food, it doesn't matter what it is, they can't let it go because they have this program that there's not enough. So yeah, it's definitely the case. And so in our heart is where we live. That's our space. And whatever we keep in there, that determines our environment. That's how we have to live. So if one can give up envy, then one can be happy. But if one can't, then one has to live with that vibration, with that fragrance. Envy also has a fragrance, which is very stinky, and we don't like it.
We call it odor. It's an odor.
It's odorous.
Odiferous.
Yeah, even if we're creating it and keeping it there, we know it's there because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So that's supposed to warn us to let it go. Anyway, that's it.
Ijo desu ka?
Ijo.
Hai. So this project, it's a project that's pretty exciting. You can actually clear the heart. You can cleanse the heart with Krishna's help, of course, but we have to apply ourselves to the process and allow Krishna to clear our heart. Patina. Yes.
About everyone having different gradations of being envious to people, I was thinking in addition to having a limited viewpoint of the world where you think life is scarce and there isn't enough, so you get very desperate, isn't there another aspect where you just feel like there isn't enough love for yourself, where you feel like you're not good enough? So then when other people are good, you feel like you'll never be as good enough. So isn't that a lack of love for yourself as well? And how does that fit in to everything?
Yes, Satidev has a ready answer for that one.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not sure what your name is.
Patina.
Patina. I think you actually hit the nail right on the head. Because if we look at envy and really analyze it and see what it is, isn't it coming from, actually it's a kind of fear. We're afraid that we're not good enough because we don't know our own value, because we're in ignorance of who and what we are and our relationship with God. That's really the source of envy. So the cure for envy is to actually discover our value and love ourselves. And so I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Good work, Patina, getting Satidev fired up. Yeah, that is really a beautiful axiom to bring into this. The idea that because I'm missing myself, I don't know my true self, I'm seeing something else, a reflected idea of what myself is, a false ego. And therefore, I live in this idea of fear and scarcity. Payam dvitiya binibeshata syad ishad apetasya viparya yosmiti. The Bhagavatam says that fear arises when I forget my relationship with Krishna, and therefore I forget my relationship with myself, and therefore I see something different from who I am, and I become fearful. It's a scary thing. And then from that, fear and scarcity, there's, as you're bringing out, Satidev polished up and brought to the fore, there's this burning envy that comes as a result. Please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, I had heard once that there are three kinds of swabhav. One janmagat, by birth, one shikshagat, by education, one sangagat, by association. So I think shikshagat and sangagat, one can, our swabhav can change, but janmagat, the prarabdha that we get, if there's too much envy there, then I guess we should probably just rely on Krishna's mercy. Is that the...
we should always rely on Krishna's mercy. And whether we've gotten bad association, or you're saying we can be cured by shiksha or by sangha, but
looks like janmagat swabhav is like very difficult to change, right? Because it's in a balance sheet, apparently.
Yeah, janma could be a little harder to change, but the fact is you have to see what's more powerful. I mean, because janma means the three modes of material nature. When we talk about janma, purusha prakriti stohi bhunte prakriti jan gunan karanam gunasangosya sarasad yoni janmasu. Krishna confirms that whatever good or bad situation I'm born into has to do with my gunasanga, my association with the modes previously. So there's momentum from previous life, and I have a certain disposition when I come into the world. But the holy name is more powerful than those modes, and therefore the Shastra gives many examples of people like Murgrari the hunter, who was born into a situation in which he thought that it was a great idea to half-kill animals, not just be a hunter, but actually make them suffer. And because of Narada Muni's association and the sadhana that Narada Muni gave him, he was able to rise above that. And that's the very premise by which Prabhupada lived and taught the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, that whatever situation one is in, one can be elevated by the process of Krishna consciousness. If one simply accepts the direction of the acharya and follows the process wholeheartedly. What cannot be overcome? Kirata hunandara pulinda pulkasha abhira shumba yavanaka sadaya yene cha papa yada pashraya shaya shudyanti tasmai prabhavishnave namaha. Shukadev Goswami says it. So it doesn't matter how far out you've gone because of your janma. And he names a lot of different kinds of people. I mean, it's a really weird experience to be born into this world that's in such a far-flung way, just to be so estranged from any kind of good qualities at all. But then Shukadev says, everyone can be rectified because of the power of Vishnu, who comes through the devotees of the Lord. You know, and that argument goes on oftentimes in India. Sometimes say, I'm born in a Brahmin family, and you're not. Therefore, you can't practice devotional service, or you can't do this or that. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu followed the philosophy of the Bhagavat. So did our acharyas. Aho batashwa pachato garyanya jiva gre vartate namatubhyam tipusta paste juhuvu sasna arya brahmana churnama grananti ete. Devahuti says in the Srimad Bhagavatam that what wonderful thing it is. Aho batashwa, that a shwapacha, a dog eater, born into a dog eater family, this terrible janma. I mean, what's for Thanksgiving dinner? Dogs. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's like, it's a family treat. And he says, even that person, if that person can utter the holy name even once with the tip of the tongue, then tepus tapaste juhvu sasna arya, this person is considered to be a highly elevated person, and is. And all the acharyas agree with it. They don't half agree with it, they completely agree with it. Our acharyas look at it and say, this is the power of the holy name. You can overcome janma by this process of chanting Hare Krishna. That's pretty far out. So we can have full faith in that, because it's very clearly spelled out in the Shastra that one can overcome even the momentum of one's previous life by the process of Krishna consciousness. However, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, near the end of the 9th chapter, then he says, anybody can be purified, and he names people who are maybe affected by lower modes of material nature, but then he says, what to speak of the brahmanas? What to speak if you get a high birth? And then you take advantage of it. Of course, a lot of people get a high birth, and then I have a high birth, I don't need to do anything. And then they become contaminated by that mentality itself. And they can't make advancement. So, yes.
So Maharaj, about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says about the Ati Mahatmas, that they see good qualities when they are not even there.
Yeah.
So are they do they see the potential in the person?
Yeah, that's what they're seeing, is the potential, because as we've mentioned before in this class, that there's people who see and judge people according to their past. It's like, that's what you did before, therefore deals off. Now there's people who see people and they judge them according to how they are now. Say, okay, no matter what you were in your past, here's what you are now. So that's good. We'll take that. But the most elevated people see, what are they going to be in the future? And this was Prabhupada's vision. When he came to America, he was writing about it on the Jaladuta. He was seeing that by the power of the Bhagavat, by the power of the holy name, it doesn't matter where where people are starting from, their potential is there by connection with Krishna consciousness, and therefore he would empower people, knowing that if they were in the process, they would become elevated. I'll give you an example of Prabhupada's feeling for this. I will take, if you'll permit me, the 11th Madhya CC, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 1189. And I'm going to read you a purport that will give a flavor of the way in which Prabhupada saw the potential of anyone who is engaged in Krishna consciousness. In other words, you let the person be a neophyte, let the person come from a low background, whatever he or she may be. If that person surrenders, they are then accepted as great souls immediately. It can happen immediately. It's not that you have to take many births, but you just decide. So this is CC, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 11, the Beta Kirtan pastimes, text 89. Raghava Pandit Iha, Acharya Nandano, Sriman Pandirat Srikanta Narayano. Give the mic to Shamalangi. Let's hear her say this. We want some Bengali in here. Just channel your days in Calcutta. Okay, go ahead.
I'm seeing if there are any other Bengalis near me. Okay.
Go ahead. We'll have her do it next.
Raghava Pandita Iha Acharya Nandano Shriman Pandita Ei Srikanto Narayan.
Okay, give her a little applause for that there. Okay, do it again.
রাঘব পণ্ডিত ইহ আচার্য নন্দন শ্রীমান পণ্ডিত এই শ্রীকান্ত নারায়ণ
Yay! Okay. Translation. Here is Raghava Pandit. Here is Acharya Nandana. There is Sriman Pandit. And here are Srikant and Narayan. Purport. Hold on to your hats. Fasten your safety belts. I'm going to read this purport. Are you ready? Yes. I'm not convinced. Yes. Now I'm convinced. Narottam Das Thakur, honoring the personal associates of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, has sung as follows in Prarthana 13. Gorangera Shanga Goni, Nitta Shidho Kari Mani, Shejaya Vrajendra Shuttapaya. One who is intelligent understands that all the personal associates and devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are ever liberated. This means that because they are always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, they do not belong to this material world. One who is engaged in the Lord's devotional service 24 hours daily and never forgets the Lord is called Nitya Siddha. Srila Rupa Goswami confirms this statement. Ihayasya harer dasye kamaramana sagira nikila syapyavastasu jivan muktas uchite. A person acting in the service of Krishna with body, mind, intelligence, and words is a liberated person even within the material world, although he may be engaged in many so-called material activities. A devotee is always thinking of how to better serve Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and how to broadcast his name, fame, and qualities throughout the world. One who is Nitya Siddha has no business other than broadcasting the glories of the Lord all over the world according to his ability. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur says, Nitya Siddha Karimani. One should not think that because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was personally present 500 years ago, only his associates were liberated. Rather, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says that anyone is a Nitya Siddha if he acts on behalf of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by spreading the glories of the holy name of the Lord. We should respect those devotees preaching the glories of the Lord as Nitya Siddha and should not consider them conditioned. So this is seeing the potential. This is shastric, and this is the way that one can observe people according to their future, because one who has experience for him or herself of the potency of the holy name to purify one's own heart can then also see, and we hear oftentimes when we go speak to devotees, say, oh, let me tell you where I started off, like this and like that, and next thing I knew, and here I am. And if it could happen for me, then one could understand that others can also become elevated. Prabhupada mentions in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita as well in a purport that if someone, even a neophyte, accepts that Krishna and his holy name are non-different, that's their complete faith, then that person can convert others to Vaishnavas all over the world. That complete conviction in the absolute nature of the holy name of the Lord, we can see from devotees who first joined the Krishna consciousness movement and had that faith that they got from Prabhupada. They had very little knowledge of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, although I must say, because of the way Prabhupada taught so assiduously, that devotees, people just early on were able to pick up the essence of the Krishna conscious philosophy and actually present it to others who had even been a part of the Indian culture for so many years in a way that was astounding. Nonetheless, he sent out young men and women all over the world to spread Krishna consciousness, and he empowered them to take over properties, to manage millions of dollars, to teach others about Krishna consciousness, because he knew that if someone was simply faithfully engaged in chanting the holy names and following the process given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that they would all have all success. Why wouldn't they? In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Sri Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that he helps the person who's sincere. If somebody's just sincere, and there's many verses like that, he says, one who does good. When Arjuna asked, what happens if I fall down? What happens if I try to? He says, don't worry, one who does good is never overcome by evil. If you're just trying, you're going to be successful. I read yesterday, I was reading my Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, if you just offer slight respect to Krishna, you're in Krishna consciousness. I underlined that word. I was so amazed. I put an arrow towards it. Slight. You have to add that word, that modifier, slight. Just a slight bit of respect to Krishna. Atapi te deva padambuja dvaya. Prasada leshanugrahita evahi. Brahma says, lesha. Even if it's just a trace, a tiny little bit, you offer some respect to Krishna. Then, he said, you can understand everything. He'll reveal everything to you. And even those in the Bhagavatam who are known as demons who approach Krishna with ill intent, like Putana, who came to Krishna wanting to kill him, Krishna said, all right, she tried to be my mother anyway. Forget the other part, the killing part, no problem. She got liberation as his mother. So Uddhava says, who wouldn't surrender such a person? What are you, an idiot? I mean, why would you put make your allegiance anywhere else except with Krishna? And so the implication here is that if one simply adjusts one's consciousness towards becoming a devotee of Krishna and then lives in this world according to this instruction of the Shastra to give up envy and regulate one's relationships with others so that one can do that, one will become, in due course of time, a Paramahamsa, a perfected soul in this world, altogether possible. That's the big project, to actually come to that point. And one shouldn't say either that it's impossible. That's not in the Shastra. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say it's impossible. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself says, krame krame, step by step, one comes to the position of Uttama Adhikari if you chant Hare Krishna. And you cultivate what it says in Shastra. It's actually your duty to do this. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is ordering everyone. You have to become a teacher, a guru devotee, he says, you have to become. And spread Krishna consciousness yourself all over the world. That's the duty of each person to do that. So this astounding purport, any feedback we'll take now from what I just read, or any of the last segment of the conversation we had before I move on to the next part.
I was just thinking how this, the great quality of seeing the potential of how a devotee will be in the future, then there is no way we can disrespect others, because everybody is a soul and every soul has a potential, irrespective of their mistakes. They have the potential to serve Krishna. And even today, like people who are outside, they appreciate this quality of seeing good in others. And I was also just thinking how it also helps us to be develop the quality of equanimity, that in the 12th chapter, in the last few verses, Krishna says heat and cold, honor, dishonor. And he specifically stresses that I like that devotee very much. So if we want to be very dear to Krishna, this equanimity can be developed only if we see this in all devotees, and then not envying them will be easy for us.
That was very powerful. Yes, when you were saying that, I could see how there's this great project, and that it's altogether possible to actually come to this point of abandoning envy and simply become absorbed in one's service and in appreciating the service of others. And then what is there to lament? And that kind of a life and attitude is totally appreciated by Krishna, as you mentioned, the 12th chapter of the Gita.
I just want to add how earlier in the class you mentioned that answering somebody else's question, if I cannot tolerate the eminence of others, like what to do with my envy, and you said that you have to suffer. And in previous class also you said how envy blocks all the mercy that has to come to us. I think personally, when the reactions come for envy, it's much more severe than the reactions that would come for any small sins that we commit. So I think we have to be very fearful of envying devotees, because the punishment will be very heavy and painful.
Yeah, it's its own punishment, actually. Yes.
Maharaj, I was interestingly hearing the lecture from Madhvanand Prabhu he was giving in the Vrindavan, and he was taking the section of Vrittasur, 6th canto, 12th chapter, verse number 17, that how Bhagavatam described that how you find the sadhu, and apparently if you see Vrittasur's quality, like any ordinary person will tell, no, he was a demon. Like even many Puranas make Indra as a hero and Vrittasur as a demon, but Bhagavatam brings out the real quality, like what is the real quality in Vrittasur he was a devotee. And so that's what he was mentioning, the same context, and he was telling one of his personal practice that he do is like whenever he meets any person, he makes sure that he can remember one of the good quality that he made that person. So that was, I think, when you are describing, I could relate more when you given that 6 categories, 3 from the good and then 3 from the those verses was just profound, and I can relate that how it's true.
Thank you. Yeah, very nice. Shamalangi.
And not only amongst devotees, even in external material world we associate, like in our office. I've seen that, though I may be like, I'm sure my teammates consider me a very boring person because, I don't go out to the restaurant with them, or don't, like sometimes some shopping or anything. But still, I think they recognize, if you're not envious and if you're getting the work done and you're not very into politics, they do recognize and they understand that the person is responsible. Of course, it can always change. I mean, it's like, but in general, I've seen that they do appreciate. There's
a professor at Berkeley, UC Berkeley, who wrote a book recently. Can't remember the name of it right now, but he's done a lot of research, social research, and one of the things he talked about is the corporate world and relationships in the corporate world. And he says, and this was actually a revelation when I heard him say this, because oftentimes when I talk about humility, people raise their hand and say, yeah, but it doesn't work in the corporate environment because you'll be consumed, you'll be stepped on, and you won't make it. But he says the opposite according to his research. He says people who in the workplace who are humble and actually have compassion for others, they become, they're promoted faster, they become more popular, they actually have more leverage because of that. There's just some interesting empiric evidence done in sociological study about the relationships in the workplace. Yes. Shalabahu.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I think the envy is coming from when we are comparing with somebody else, comparing us with somebody else. But if you are understanding who you are and staying in your stay core, there is no envy.
Yes. Yeah, because on the material platform, there's always some difference. Some people have more of this, or there's inequality on the material platform. But if one vidyavinaya samphane brahmane gavihastani shuni chaiva shupakecha pandita samadarshina, if one is learned and actually sees beyond the material body and understands people's spiritual position, then that person has peace of mind, doesn't have to entertain those external differences. As one sees, someone brought up in the class the other day about money. It's mentioned in the Bhagavatam. People often envy people who have money, because it happens all the time. Somebody in the family wins the lottery, and their life is ruined. Mostly because their relationships are ruined, because everyone feels like you didn't deserve it. And oftentimes the people who got the money feel like I didn't deserve it either. And people envy that. But Bhagavatam talks about how wealth comes into one's possession and then it leaves your possession, it goes into somebody else's possession. It doesn't really belong to us. And devotees don't have that sense of propriety over their possessions or their wealth. They give that up. They see that I'm just the steward of whatever energy Krishna has given me. I'm taking care of it for his service. In that way, they're indemnified from this competition between others. This person has more than me. Why do they have more? Why do I have less? Devotees don't mind more or less because they simply, whatever Krishna gives me, whatever facility. And if he doesn't give me any money or any kind of material facility like that, I'll be satisfied doing some menial service. If you're satisfied doing menial service, then what is the need for any accoutrements of wealth? And therefore, no need to become envious. So Prabhupada wrote a letter. Oops. Now it disappeared. So let's see if it comes back. It did. Okay, so I always like this letter. I have to set it up a little bit. There's in a movement like ours, there are different personalities, and there are ways in which even within our group, there's groups within groups, and some groups can become competitive with other groups, maybe even feel a little envious of others' groups and so forth. Prabhupada had a way of equalizing things, and this letter is an example of that. As I go along, if there are more things to insert, more history or framing for this, I'll do it. But this is a letter written in 1972. Prabhupada was in Ahmedabad. And he writes, he's in Yeah, he writes to Byron's Bay, Australia, to a devotee named Tushta Krishna. My dear Tushta Krishna, and it's no one you know. It's different Tushta Krishnas. Please accept my blessings. I am in due receipt. I think he passed away some years. But I am due receipt of your letters dated November 18th, November 22nd, and December 3rd, 1972. And I have heard that you are having some difficulties. So I have sent Siddha Swarup there to help you. Now try to keep a cool head under all circumstances and always remember that Krishna will protect you in any case. You haven't to worry about anything. I think that without you, the New Zealand affair will not go on, but now you are leaving there to live on some farm in Australia. Of course, our serving Krishna is a voluntary affair, so what can I say? If you think that it's the best choice, I must agree. Otherwise, you might go away altogether. Anyway, we shall discuss it in detail if I come there in the future. This is just not exactly the point I'm making yet in the first paragraph, but just it's a delight to read Prabhupada's personal letters. It says so much about how he interacted with the devotees who came. He, just like Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, who laid out everything for Arjuna and said, so what would you like to do? It's like you're a volunteer. You want to voluntarily surrender? It's a good idea. I highly recommend it. Or do you want to, do something else? It's up to you, he said. Now decide what you'd like to do, Arjuna. And Prabhupada did the same thing. Of course, if someone was very surrendered, he would just tell them, do this, go there. And they would just do it. And he, that kind of relationship between a teacher and the student, it is something that is known to the teacher, that there are different kinds of students, some that are surrendered, some that aren't so surrendered. And Prabhupada often said, with different devotees, said, don't break them. Don't break their spirit. You have to understand that people are volunteers. And even as Prabhupada's dealing with different devotees, it's not like, don't go there. The person's going there saying, what can I do? You're a volunteer. Of course, I'd appreciate it if you would stay in New Zealand. But then he goes on, regarding your questions in the letter of November 18th, 1972, you have asked me if the spiritual master is ultimately Krishna. So the answer must be that if you think that way, then everyone is Krishna. So why we should think like this? Shakti Vaisesika means a living entity, but he is specially empowered, not that he is Krishna. But on account of his exalted position, he is honored as much as Krishna, not that he is Krishna. That is Mayavadi. He acts in the position of Krishna, but he is not Krishna. He is very dear to Krishna. That is explained. And he gives Yasya Prasada, Bhagavat Prasada. Does everyone know that verse? Who wrote it? And when do you generally sing it? And what happens if you sing it at the Brahma Muhurta hour every day? Can you prove that? What's the 9th verse? Srimad Guru Arashtakami Tarusha Brahme Muhurte Patita Prayatna Yastena Vrindavananata Sakshat. What's the last line? Saiva Eva Janashonte Eva, that if you sing this loudly in the Brahma Muhurta hour, you go back to Godhead. Okay, so the spiritual master is acting in the position of Krishna because he is the most confidential servant of Krishna. Your next question, after leaving this material realm, does the devotee remain forever with his spiritual master? The answer is yes. But I think you have gotten the mistaken idea in this connection. You speak of pure devotee, that he is Shakti Vaisesika, that we should obey him only. These things are the wrong idea. Now I have to give a little background, because this devotee was part of a group within ISKCON where there was a very charismatic leader and became very prominent for his particular group. And they were thinking like, he's like the topmost only one. And so Prabhupada knows his mentality is sort of addressing that here. And so Prabhupada goes on, if anyone thinks like that a pure devotee should, he says, you speak of pure devotee, that he is Shakti Vaisesika, that means his leader that he's with, that we should obey him only. These things are the wrong idea. If anyone thinks like that a pure devotee should be obeyed and no one else, that means he is nonsense. We advise everyone to address one another as Prabhu. Prabhu means master, so how the master should be disobeyed. Others, they are also pure devotees. All my disciples are pure devotees. Anyone sincerely serving the spiritual master is a pure devotee. It may be Siddha Swarup or others, Siddha Swarup. So that was the name of the leader there, Siddha Swarupananda. He's a great soul, and he's still preaching Krishna consciousness. This must be very clearly stated. It is not only that your Siddha Swarup is a pure devotee and not others. Do not try to make a faction. Siddha Swarup is a good soul, but others should not be misled. Anyone who is surrendered to the spiritual master is a pure devotee. It doesn't matter if Siddha Swarup or non-Siddha Swarup. Amongst ourselves, one should respect others as Prabhu, master. As soon as we distinguish, here's a pure devotee, here's a non-pure devotee, that means I am nonsense. Why you only want to be in the spiritual sky with Siddha Swarup? Why not all? If Siddha Swarup can go, why not everyone? Siddha Swarup will go, you will go, Shyamasundar will go, all others will go. We'll have another ISKCON there. Of course, Mr. Nair must stay. So, just to give you the frame of reference, during buying the Juhu temple, there was this very heavy dealings that Prabhupada had to deal with. If you look up Nair in the database, you'll find hundreds of hits, because Prabhupada had to deal with this very uncomfortable situation that had to deal with the real estate for the property there in Juhu. And this one person was, well, anyway, I'm not going to say too much about Mr. Nair, except for that he was trying to impede the progress in a way that was not very nice at all. And so Prabhupada had this sort of tongue-in-cheek thing to say, but Mr. Nair must stay. And if somebody does not go, then I shall have to come back and take him there. One should remember this, and every one of my disciples should act in such a way that they may go with me and may not have to come back to take another birth. As for I wanted to, give you a flavor for one of Prabhupada's letters where he's talking about that, first of all, that if one is following a pure devotee, one is known to be a pure devotee. This is the principle. And that there's a way in which, Krishna is equitable towards everyone. And if someone, okay, then as for your next question, can only a few pure devotees deliver others? Prabhupada says, anyone, if he is a pure devotee, he can deliver others, he can become spiritual master. But unless he is on that platform, he should not attempt it. Then both of them will go to hell, just blind man leading the blind. Next you ask if I'm present in my form and picture. Yes, in form as well as in teachings. To carry out the teachings of Guru is more important than to worship the form, but none of them should be neglected. Form is called Vapu and teachings is called Vani. Both should be worshipped. Vani is more important than Vapu. Your next question is, should we love Krishna or love the spiritual master? You cannot go to Krishna directly loving him. It is common sense that if Krishna is the object of your love, his pet dog is also the object of your love. Friends meet friends, and if the friend is with his dog, the gentleman pats his dog first, is it not? So the man becomes automatically pleased, his dog being patted. I have seen it in your country. The conclusion is this: without pleasing the spiritual master, he cannot please Krishna. If anyone tries to please Krishna directly, he is fool number one. Hoping this meets you and your good wife, Krishna Tulsi Dasi, in good health and devotional mood. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Good job. Okay, a text came in.
This is from Ramrati Das Prabhu, Oracle. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Danvat Pranam. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Your every class is best, but this class is best of the best. I like the point that we have a big project to free ourselves from this most unwanted enemy inside the heart, so that their lordships can reside in a heart. And then, as you say, we can have a festival every day. Thank you, your servant Ramrati Das.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to add that Mukharvinda had used the word jolly to describe devotees, and I looked up jolly in the dictionary, and it as the origin of the word jolly. I mean, jolly is happy person, and they said it is links to one of the festivals, links to Christianity, like a Yule festival, like that. So it actually Yule, and then jolly comes from that. So jolly means
Prabhupada
festival.
uses the word in various places. In another context, he talks about how the first sign that one's advancing in devotional service is one becomes jolly. Evam prasanna manaso bhagavad bhakti yogata bhagavad tattva vijnana mukta sangha sujayate. This sense is given throughout the scripture, like Sutta Goswami says, Evam prasanna manaso. The mind becomes happy, joyful, jolly, when one is freed from envy. Essentially, when one gives up envy and simply embraces one's eternal service, then everything looks beautiful and bright. There's no more of the tinge of darkness that comes from this envy. Yes. A comment that came from where? The Yahoo chat. Of course, we will not discriminate against the Yahoo chat in this assembly. YouTube chat, definitely. We'll bring in the YouTube chat.
This is from Will Jacoby. The foot should not be envious of the hand, as the whole body suffers when the little toe is crushed.
See, the food should not be envious.
The foot.
The foot should not be envious of the hand.
As the whole body suffers when the little toe is crushed.
Because the whole body suffers when the little toe is crushed. And who was that?
This is from Will Jacoby.
Oh, thank you very much. It sounded like japa bead. But that was a very beautiful comment. Thank you for offering that through the Google. YouTube. Okay. We've got a lot of things going on here. Okay. Okay, there's a Google chat here. Let's put the Google chat against the YouTube. Let's see what happens.
This is from Charu Mataji.
Oh, good.
Hare Krishna, this is Charu. The lecture about our relationships with others, with Krishna, and with ourselves. I'm getting that by showing benefits rather than punishments, people may just get it and put in action easily rather than showing them punishments and fear.
Yeah, of course, there's room for, it's not that we're Pollyanna and we just overlook everything, but there is a way in which, that is, we overlook anomalies. The Shastra says that one should not criticize, but the Acharyas also say that if somebody is misleading people because they're presenting the philosophy of Krishna consciousness in an adverse way, then one must be critical. I mean, intelligence means critical, means to be able to distinguish from one thing from another. But it's the purpose for which it's done and the way in which it's done that makes a difference. The criticism and so forth. But obviously those who are advanced in consciousness can offer criticism in such a way that it helps people to advance in spiritual life, because it's not tinged with envy. And this is brought out in the commentary to the famous verse, Evam vrata swapriya nama kirtya jatanarago jitachuta ucher asatyato roditi gayati unmadavam rititi lokabhayaha. And that is that when one takes a vow to chant Hare Krishna, one makes advancement. That is, the heart begins to soften and melt, and one develops a positive attraction for the name. And then one's life becomes unpredictable. Sometimes persons that are so absorbed like that dance and sing in public without caring for outsiders. And in the commentary to that verse, which appears in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, and was actually quoted by Ishvara Puri to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just after he had taken initiation. Just after Mahaprabhu had taken initiation and came back to his spiritual master and said, "What kind of mantra did you give me? Because I think it made me crazy." By the way, I was at the Sadhu Sangha retreat, and I was at one of the kirtans. It was so fantastic. It was Govinda Maharaj and the Kinshana Krishna. The next day when I was talking to him, I said, "I saw your kirtan last night." He said, "How was it?" I said, "I think it drove me insane." He said, "Is that a good thing?" And it practically drove me crazy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "I think this mantra is something, did I do something wrong? It's making me crazy." And his spiritual master, "Oh, very good. This is a sign you're advancing in Krishna consciousness." And he quoted this verse, "Evam vrata svapriya nama kirtya." So one thing that's interesting, there's many things interesting in the commentary, but one of them that relates to this that's interesting is that Madhvacharya says some devotees, they show external symptoms of this kind of spiritual madness, and others don't. They restrain themselves. But all devotees who are advanced have two symptoms. One is steadiness. They always are up for it, up for their service. They never waver in their service. And the second is called Mukhya Prasadad, which means that whatever vibration comes from their mouth is merciful. And even if it's criticism, it's merciful because it's meant for the betterment of others. And this is the symptom of the most advanced devotee according to Rupa Goswami. Krishneti yasya giritam marasadreta dikshasti chet pranati bishcha bhajantam isham. Shushushaya bhajana vignam ananyamanya nindari shunya hridamipsita sangalabhya. He says, he lists various categories of devotees, and the highest among them, he says, is nindari shunya hridam, that the heart is freed from the propensity to criticize others. That's something to look for. So there's a way in which Krishna consciousness, the process of Krishna consciousness, will cleanse the heart of this burning envy, and one can see it in one's own practice, in one's own heart, as one continues to practice, and one should be aware of it and feel relief from this oppression by this unrealistic and unnecessary energy called envy. And then one can live happily ever after. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I go Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, I go Hari Bol. Jai Jai Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jai Jai Prabhupada. Thai Go Premanande. So I'm leaving tomorrow because I have to go to Boston to see Nitin and his fired up Sankirtan team. And then we're going up to see Pyari Mohan. And where's that place he lives? Hartford, Connecticut. And then we're going up to Toronto. And somehow or other, although at one point I said I wasn't going to do it much anymore, I'm doing 4 weddings this summer. And then I realized I was just being an ogre, stingy person, by not wholeheartedly embracing these wonderful events where so many people come together. In fact, we did an engagement ceremony at the Bhakti Center in New York, and it was mostly new people that came. And it was one of the nicest presentations of Krishna consciousness, with the assembly of devotees there, and people open-heartedly appreciating the ceremony and so forth. Anyway, there's lots to do in Toronto, and they're getting ready for their huge Ratha Yatra ceremony. So I'll see you back in about 11 days. And please keep the vibration going, because it's the only way to stay above the modes of material nature and to remain sane in this world, and productive. Sane and productive, which is something, Hare Krishna, I need right now. So please take care of each other and push on with great vigor. This is the first time in my life that I've missed the disappearance day of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And so if it wasn't by force of circumstance, then it wouldn't have happened, but it's the way of the world. But we're all connected as one team. One team spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. And we just heard about the implications of that from Srila Prabhupada's purport. So give your whole heart to this. The world's already a tenuous place. And what to speak of nowadays in Kali Yuga, it's a little bit dicey out there. So don't let your guard down. Keep the vibration going. And don't assume anything about the material world, like that it's stable or safe. Take shelter of Bhagavad Gita. Take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam and the holy names, and continue on like that. If you'll excuse me, I have a very early flight in the morning. I'm going to vámonos, a la tu casa. And I will see you in 11 days. Vanchakalpatarusha kripasnabevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha gopremanande.